at least 1 year to solve the hunger crisis in the country. Just a lot for you in this discussion tonight, and joining me is our seasoned political analyst, Solomon Musyoki, who is also a Kenya Kwanza youth leader. Thank you so much, Solomon, for dedicating your time for this discussion. And it's really been a while, of course, having you here, and really a lot has been happening in the political scenery on the national politics, and probably a touch of it in the campus politics with Kenyatta University recently holding their elections. So we'll get the ball rolling on the national politics. Probably what we'll start with is what we saw today with the head of state launching the phase 2 project of the affordable housing in Raila Odinga's backyard, that is in Kibera. And then one thing that really stood out is when the president mentioned that Kenyans should give this Kenya Kwanza government time for them to lower the cost of living, as they had promised during the campaign period. But the president was so categorical in this. He said that let the people of Kenya be patient with them and give them at least 1 year to solve, so that the price of unga can be lowered from the 230 Kenyan shillings to probably 100 shillings that they promised during the campaign period. So this has elicited mixed reactions from Kenyans, because during the campaign periods it was not stated that when we get into office, probably this is one thing that we'll do for you in a span of 1 year. So Kenyans are finding it a bit different from what was promised during the campaign periods. Generally, what do you make of all this that is coming out during now this implementation period of the government mandate?
Just as usual, politicians always promise things that are very nice. They always promise heaven, but when it comes to implementation, that's where you now find the many challenges, the many ups and downs when it comes to implementation. But what I believe is that the promise that he's giving Kenyans right now is actually an achievable promise. It is now the real promise, leave alone now the promises before the elections, because such promises are usually made out of to bring excitement, and sometimes they are not really realistic. But at this point, I believe it is very realistic. Why? Because when you look at his plan, he's planning to bring down the price of unga by actually increasing production. And we both know you cannot increase production in a month or two.
Right.
You need that 1 year to increase production through subsidizing the fertilizer, through subsidizing other equipments that will help now increase production. So I believe the 1 year is now realistic, and what you can do is just give him all the support and wait for that 1 year and see if he delivers.
All right, interesting. Now, another thing, of course, when people start poking holes to the promises that were made by the government was the 50 billion shillings, the Hustler Fund, which the president said that it will be rolled out probably in December, and it will not be free money, because during the campaign period there is one thing that he was saying, that probably this Hustler Fund will not attract interest. But of course, when he was recently with the people having this, in the financial sector, he's saying that it will be having probably interest of one figure. He said 10%. one figure interest rate. So generally, again, this is raising questions among the Kenyans, saying that this government was promising us a lot of goodies, but now when it comes to the implementation, we are seeing something different. And now remember, this government, before it came into office, he made a lot of promises to the electorate. So what does also this, of course, mean moving forward? Is it that we are going to revise most of these promises that were made by the government, so that we make them realistic for the implementation?
I believe most of these promises, I think some of them we were actually over-ambitious when making these promises, or probably some were just meant to win the electoralists. But what I love about the president is that he's actually going back and see what can be done about this promise, what best can we go about this issue. You've talked about affordable housing. It was part of his four-point agenda. We talk about the reducing the cost of living. We've seen him actually subsidize the cost of fertilizer. Now we are talking about this other issue about the Hustler Fund. In as much as it wasn't possible to have it free, but we can actually see that we are having, for the first time, government giving small entrepreneurs, SMEs, and young hustlers something small, some capital for them to start businesses. So when you look at it that way, you actually see that it's a good thing. But when you compare it to the promises, you'll see that there's quite a disparity. But what I believe is that definitely there'll be a lot of changes between what was promised and what is now being offered. But what I believe is that actually the current president is doing his best to make sure that he delivers on each and every promise.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, probably the last thing when we're talking about these promises was the move that we saw being taken by the government. Of course, this was after a meeting by the cabinet secretaries aligned to the agriculture when they lifted the ban on GMOs. And of course, this also elicited mixed reactions from Kenyans, saying that, they are citing the health effects of these GMOs. And on the economic side, people are arguing that if president is subsidizing the cost of production by reducing the cost of fertilizers and other farm inputs, but then opening doors for the importers of the international multinationals who export the GMOs now to this country, citing that probably there would be unfair competition with the local farmers, because when they will be producing with the subsidized fertilizer and other farm inputs, we will have probably a lot of food in the country, but now they will be facing another competition of multinationals importing lots of these GMOs. And then there is some debate that is arising from this. So let me get your perspective on this.
That is true. I believe that will be quite a challenge because, there are so many challenges our farmers are going through, and definitely their cost of production will be quite high compared to the exporters, because they have at least financial muscles and all. So I believe it is a matter of the government coming up with policies of protecting our farmers, for protecting our producers, so that we are able to give them proper market. We're able to protect the prices and their market when we have challenges such as exporters bringing more food to our country. Yeah.
All right, and maybe moving away from that, during this launch of the first tour of the affordable housing, we saw what the Nairobi women representative, that is Esther Passaris, acknowledging that President William Ruto, you are my president. And another news, of course, we also saw Mudavadi and Atwoli meeting together, and they of course vowed to work together to unite probably the Mulembe nation. So during the campaign periods, we saw the disparity that was there between people allied to the Kenya Kwanza and of course people who are allied to the Azimio side. Now Azimio side sits strongly in the opposition, but we are seeing them, of course, some of them cross the floor of the house. Members who are elected in the Azimio cross the floor, moving to Kenya Kwanza. We have now seen Esther Passaris saying that, now acknowledging openly that President William Ruto is his president. And of course on the other side, for the Mulembe nation, Moses, not Wetangula rather, but Mudavadi meeting with Atwoli and now agreeing to work together. So what does it, of course, there is a picture that this creates, but moving forward, of course, now what do we really foresee in the near future? Are we going to have that strong opposition in this country that will be maybe so vocal to keep checks in the government? Because the people who are so vocal, who are now seated in the opposition, are moving closer to the government to work together with the government. Will they be opposing the government when they are working close to the government?
Yes, I think we've been having an opposition issue for so many years. Right. We had it in 2018. You remember when there was the handshake? There was an issue of opposition, and these are things I think that have been happening for quite a long time. So it is a question of will His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga stand strong, come out clearly to provide check and balances? Will his team, that is the Azimio team, come out strongly? Or will they chicken away or cross the floor to the other side? But I believe when you look at Atwoli is not a sworn member of any office holder when it comes to the house, or Yeah, when it comes to the House, he's not a Senate or an MP, so we can't really question him. But for someone like Esther Passaris, you know, you have to understand that politics are over and it is time to deliver, and you need the government to deliver. Right. So in as much as, you know, Passaris is recognizing that she is part of this government and she needs to work with the national government, she should also remember that she has the mandates of keeping checks and balances of the government, and that goes to all members of the Azimio, from the members of parliament to the Senate to the governors and to the opposition leader, which is His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga. So much is expected from them, from the Kenyan people.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, now, interestingly, maybe let us go back to, let us align this, of course, probably to where you're coming from. That is the Kamba Nation, where I don't know now who's your kingpin, really, because you've seen, of course, recently Kalonzo Musyoka, of course, saying that he is for a very long time, of course, he has been the kingpin in that region. But, of course, we saw some sort of difference during the campaign periods when some other people from the Kamba Nation, of course, ally, moved to the side of the Kenya Kwanza. And, of course, probably this, created some sort of a division. So now that we have a government of the day, and this government of the day, when it went to Kitui the other day, was saying that they offered Kalonzo Musyoka a position in government, but Kalonzo Musyoka said that he probably wants to try the opposition. And so what do you really see here when Kalonzo Musyoka was saying that he rejected the job offer to try out what's in the opposition? Is he well representing the needs and the desires of the people he claimed to be leading, to be probably their kingpin?
His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka is a very interesting man, because today he wakes up, he's part of the Madaraka Day, he's very happy. The next minute, he's elsewhere saying how wrong this government is. And he's just an interesting person. So I believe that is actually one of the reasons why you see there's that power gap in Ukambani. And what is happening right now is that the Ukambani people it is actually up for grabs. People are waiting for prominent Kamba leaders to step up. Right. People are waiting for people like Mutula Kilonzo Jr. And the rest, like former Governor Kibwana. People were really waiting for him to actually come up. If he would have vied to be the president of Kenya, the Kambas would have rallied behind him. Right. So the Kambas are really waiting for someone to step up. When it comes to the issue of opposition, a number without time, Kalonzo Musyoka has said that he wants to be the de facto opposition leader. Absolutely. And we are still waiting, because, opposition leader is not just a position. We need to see that action. Right. We need to see you coming out and criticizing the government of the day. We need to see you coming up with policies and opinions about how do we better the lives of Kenyans. So we are really waiting that it should no longer be a talk, that he should walk the talk and show Kenyans the way as a de facto opposition leader.
All right, interesting. And of course, these 2022 general elections, it break the barriers and challenge the status quo of the Kenyan politics, where we saw a person who has not been in the position, who was actually in the previous government, serving as the deputy president, rising into the position of now being the president. So looking at probably the future, that is the politics of the 2027, when we have people like Kalonzo Musyoka, of course, who was saying that he wants to be, of course, the de facto opposition leader, and now whatever he will be falling, whether he will be the de facto opposition leader, or whether if he works with the government, let us try to look at these 2027 general elections. Probably higher chances, I know chances are high constitutionally, because President William Ruto will still have an opening to run for office, of course, for the second time. But what do you foresee in the future? Because the people who are really strong for this presidency, like the likes of ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi, now in government as the chief cabinet secretary, and we are seeing, of course, other people like Kalonzo Musyoka is swaying, whether, he's not so sure whether he's in the opposition or he wants to work with the government, borrowing from what we saw in the Madaraka Day, of course, being so happy when he's in there. So Are we seeing, but of course, let us also not forget Professor Ojakoya has been really moving around and not making so big strides politically, but he's moving around, of course, probably popularizing himself with the electorates. So what do you foresee of these 2027 general elections? Will the president, if at all he wishes to run for the second term, will he have a strong opposition to oppose, of course, probably his bid for this presidency?
When I look at the possible opposition for His Excellency William Ruto, right now I only see probably Kalonzo Musyoka. And when you look at Honorable Raila Odinga, some say he's coming, but it will be quite tricky because of the age factor.
Yeah, sure.
It will be quite tricky. And when you look at it, you see that His Excellency Ruto actually has a lot of he's in an advantaged position because he's now in government. He's able to pay loyalty. He's able to bring in more supporters, and you see so many people are now crossing the floor from Azimio to Kenya Kwanza. And the other thing is that I'm sure that he's actually working day and night to deliver to the people of Kenya to actually win the hearts of Kenyans. So that's why you see day by day he talks about Unga, he talks about the Hustler Fund, he talks about the affordable housing. He's actually working to win the hearts of Kenyans. So I believe the more he works, the more he tries to win Kenyans and also win other like-minded politicians, such as Atwoli, crossing over to join Davadi. I believe all these, are moves to actually cement his support for 2027. So he has actually high chances, probably, and Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka is not someone you can actually predict. You can actually find that he'll be the chief minister 2027. You never know. so you can just sit and wait and see how things unfold. But he actually has a good chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, maybe just to borrow from what you say, that we have seen the president, of course, working tirelessly, and the most important thing, of course, maybe to borrow from is you say that he's working, of course, paying loyalty. And of course, you have seen, of course, other members crossing the floor of the houses to work with the government, probably to help them cement, their support and probably deliver to the mandate they made to their electorates. There have been allegations, as much as yes, they're not so vocal out here, but there have been allegations that the president is using a strategy of divide and rule. Because when he happened to go to Homa Bay, there are people that he managed to bring to his side. The people who are strongly in the opposition now are with him there. And of course, when he's moving to the strongholds of the opposition, people are saying that he's going to probably get some support and divide, going to divide these regions that were strongly in the opposition and rule them. And the close relationship, the close friendship we have seen between our president, William Ruto, and the Ugandan president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who has been into power for more than 35 years. So there have been speculations that probably the president, because he has the numbers, looking at the parliament, in the National Assembly, the Kenya Kwanza government has the numbers. Looking at the Senate, the Kenya Kwanza government has the numbers. So what do you make of these speculations that people are making, that probably the president is working his way to probably implement what is happening probably in Uganda? He wants to extend his term in office more than the constitutional 10 years.
I don't believe that is actually possible in the Kenya of today. Kenyans, as I've said before, Kenyans have come of age. They understand democracy. They understand, the offices. They understand the term limits. So it is actually under no circumstance that anyone, no matter how good you are, no matter how much you deliver to the Kenyans, after 10 years, you have to give that mantle to someone else. And we will also quote what he said, that power is transient. So I believe that he believes that power is transient, that he will have his time to serve the Kenyan people. After 5 years, he's going to ask the mandate and the blessings of Kenyans to serve them another 5 years. And if they give him that chance, he will actually work for 5 years and go home.
But again, looking at this man, President William Ruto, he's one man that has challenged the status quo when it comes to the local politics. The politics that people believed in. He proved that that is not the politics. There can be a way to overturn things. Don't you think probably, being a man that has challenged the status quo in politics in Kenya, he might be able to probably, politics is dynamics. Whatever you people are thinking today, you might wake up, you find it flipped on the other side. Don't you think he has the power to suppress or what Kenyans believe or what Kenyans think politically?
Yeah, he's one man who has broken every law of power and gotten to power. So he's someone who's actually surprised, the political class. But when it comes to, I think, the issue of limits of the years of the term limit, I believe there's nothing much he can do because he has been caught on record on 1,000 times, fighting against the extension of term limit, fighting against the extension of failed governments. So I believe Kenyans are going to hold him into question in case such an idea or such a rumor comes out.
All right. So as we wind up, probably let's look at the CS vetting, where last week, of course, that is what dominated the headlines, where the nominees for these different CS positions were being vetted by the Committee of the National Assembly on Appointments. So according to the report that was tabled before the National Assembly today, only one person, that is Penina Malonza, being unanimously rejected out of the people who were the people who were vetted last week. So sorry about that. So now, if we have seen, of course, most of these CS nominees passing this vetting stage, and there were speculations, of course, prior even to this report being tabled, that almost all of them will pass this vetting process. And of course, only we've seen based on that, only one person, that is Penina Malonza, who was rejected, that she's not fit to run for the office of she's not fit to run for the CS docket of tourism and heritage. So what do you really make of this? Do you think probably whatever the president wants, because when he nominated these CSs for this post, these are the people probably he desired to work close with him in delivering the mandate to Kenyans. Now, don't think probably what the government wants, the way he wants it, is how it will be delivered, because again, they have the numbers. When it is in the National Assembly, in the Senate, they have the numbers. They have the capacity. That is what I'm thinking, that they have the capacity to do whatever they want, as an example of this CS vetting committee.
I believe that the government is actually ready to be questioned, ready for constructive criticism, because when you look at the rejecting of Honorable Penina Malonza, it actually came from the majority leader, a report from the majority leader, and that already tells you that the majority leader is part of Kenya Kwanza. Absolutely. And if Kenya Kwanza members are able to criticize that ABCDE is not able to hold this office for a number of reasons, then it actually tells you that there's constructive criticism, and I believe that is the way to go. That no one has all the knowledge. No one has the monopoly of wisdom. That we need to bring our heads together, we need to discuss together. And when you look at the reasons they gave, they're actually quite interesting, because I was looking at the background of Penina Malonza. Yes. She's someone who has done, I think, project management, public health, nothing to do with wildlife. And the reason why they had questions with her is because she could not deliver in the interview about the different issues concerning wildlife, heritage, and it's just an interview. If I ask you, if you go to an interview and you actually don't know about the particular subject or the particular job description, then it is so obvious that you should not hold that office. Right. So if someone can go to probably a job interview for being a teacher, and you cannot deliver, or you cannot say what CBC is, then it's the same way if you want to be a CS of wildlife and you cannot deliver on a few things about wildlife and the whole agenda, then you definitely are not fit to hold such an office. So I believe that is quite a legit reason for someone to be challenged for the nomination?
I don't know, Musyoki, just a minute for me to ask you. Of course, I need a rejoinder on this because several times you've seen the bankers. You go to the bank and the people you meet there, if you make friendship with them, you learn that they, in their background, they have not even studied anything relating to banking. You find them, they are from different professions like teaching, but then they are serving you in the banking sector. And of course, you will also find probably very good teachers, but they have not been to the teaching profession, but they are, I don't know, so we call them teachers by profession or something. So Malonza, you say that when you read her background, she has held very prominent key offices in public service, and in as much as probably she might have not been in line and rather in sync with what wildlife entails, the problems or the challenges that are facing wildlife, because I believe there are people who are studying, who are in school pursuing courses related to wildlife, who was probably she should be giving jobs to implement one or two things. Don't you think probably whatever happened was just done for formality, that in a way, yes, the committee on appointment would have to probably disagree on one or two things?
I believe, the question is not even about just her background, because as you've said, there are so many people who don't have a background in a certain profession, but they're actually so knowledgeable and they have the nitty-gritties of what it takes.
Right.
But here is someone who doesn't have the papers and still doesn't have the nitty-gritties, doesn't have the knowledge, And one way I want us to understand this thing, or my personal opinion, is that this is a job.
Right.
And every job has a job description. You must know this. If you want to be a doctor, you must know how to inject. You get? So the moment you want to actually take hold or take charge of such a big office, someone must have some knowledge. Someone must be able to convince these members of parliament or convince Kenyans that you actually know the challenges and how to solve the challenges concerning that particular docket. So the moment someone doesn't have such knowledge, we have thousands of Kenyans who are knowledgeable, thousands of Kenyans who are proficient and are capable of actually delivering. So the issue is we should not fight for one person. There are thousands of Kenyans who are capable. If the MPs feel that she's not fit, then we can have other capable people come into that docket and deliver to the Kenyan people.
All right, interesting. Thank you so much, of course, for your insight, Solomon Musyoki. It's really been a while, and probably we should be having more and more of these discussions. Of course, we'll be discussing on this government mandate. It's good that you give very good insights, of course, in line with the government, because we understand you're a leader in the Kenya Kwanza government, hoping, of course,